We had our first baby boy 11 days ago. This is our son, Koa. He's our first boy after our two girls, and he was born here at home. So I just thought we would sit down and share a little bit about his birth story. Um, I feel like we didn't know many people that had had home births before this, and one of the things I really liked when we were deciding to do this was listening to other people's stories. So hopefully, if anyone else is considering a home birth, this can be informative or just a positive experience to hear. We loved our home birth experience, and yeah, I just have nothing but good things to say about it. So I thought I would sit down while it's still fresh and share the details of it. So obviously, I'm probably going to be sharing more, but he, I know you have stuff to say. He just has my notes here too. Um, a couple days after he was born, I tried to write down like times and details that I wouldn't forget. I had to go back and like reference my texts with my midwife and doula because honestly, it was quite a blur for me. But I had my daughters at 38 weeks 3 days and 38 weeks 5 days, so I kind of thought he'd come around then. So when I passed both of those days, I started to think like, okay, he's never coming, which it's not true, but at the end it just kind of feels like that. I had a cervical check at 38 weeks, and I was 2 centimeters and like 60% effaced, I think. And I, with my daughters, was definitely more than that at 38 weeks. So again, that felt kind of defeating, but again, just tried to stay positive. And this time I felt more like, okay, he really is just going to come when he's ready. So I passed 38.3, passed 38.5, and going to bed at 38.6, the most pregnant I'd ever been. No signs of labor. For a couple weeks, I'd had like Braxton Hicks on and off, like every day. I'd have some here and there, but nothing painful. Like I knew it wasn't actual labor. Um, and let's see. So going to sleep that night, nothing. We made plans for the next day. We were like, let's go up, go on a hike, go to the lake, go do something just to keep us busy. Went to bed that night, woke up at 1:30 to go to the bathroom, and when I got back in bed, I had my first contraction, and I think right away I knew that it was labor. I think after you've had other babies, like you can just tell the difference between like a labor contraction and Braxton Hicks or just other contractions. Like with my oldest, I had prodromal labor for a few days, and I just knew this was different. So 1:30, that first contraction, I was like, okay, I think I'm in labor. And so I wrote it down in my notes app. I didn't have like a contraction timer app that I wanted to use. I just wrote down 1:30, got through it, laid back down, closed my eyes, and was woken up again. And I rolled over and looked at my phone, and it was 1:37. So it'd been 7 minutes, and I was like, okay. And they were intense right off the bat. Like, I had to breathe through them, like center myself, take a breath, regroup. Um, and again, laid back down, tried to go to bed, woke up again, looked at my phone. It had been another 6 minutes. Um, and that went on for quite a while. But I was like, okay, I'm not going to wake Trayson up. It was the worst time. I mean, not the worst time, but I was like 1:30. This is like, I don't want to wake him up and just have him be awake with me because it's clearly going to be either a long night or a long next day. Like I wanted him to be rested. So I didn't wake him up, um, and just kept writing down every time a contraction came. And for the first like 45 minutes, they were every 6 to 8 minutes. And I texted my midwife and my doula just to let them know that things had started. I wasn't like, you need to come or anything like that. I just knew I needed to tell them because my doula lives 30 minutes away and my midwife's like 20. Just texted them, letting them know that things had started. And my midwife responded right away and just said, like, okay, try and rest between them, get rest, try and sleep. And so that's what I had been trying to do. But I think what was hard was each contraction was intense enough that I couldn't be laying down for it. Like I couldn't just stay on my side or stay on my back. I had to get up and either like be on my hands and knees. I think that's what I was doing mainly in the bed. I'd just like roll over to my hands and knees and sit up and try and like move my hips and move around and take, deep breaths during them. Or I'd stand up. There was like a towel hanging on our door, and I'd like hang on the towel, try and let gravity work. I know that being upright and letting gravity help is really beneficial in early stages of labor. So I was trying to remind myself of that. But I'd have a contraction for a minute, and then I'd try and hurry and lay back down and fall asleep if I could for a second, and then was woken up again. And by the time I'd fallen asleep, it'd only been like 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Then I was up again. So that was intense just because I was like, I can't rest. There's no way I can rest through these. So finally, you woke up probably an hour and a half after my contractions had started. I think it was 3 a.m. And you just heard me,
Yep.
just heard me breathing. And I
Just
think you said, I think what you asked, you were like, how close are they or how far apart are they? Like, I think you knew that they'd probably been going on for a minute. At that time, they were still like 6 minutes apart. Had you go grab my birth comb. I really liked my birth comb in labor. Maybe it's like a placebo effect, but I did not set that thing down. Once I grabbed it, probably around 3, I probably had that in my hand until he was born. So around 3 to 4 o'clock, they picked up for sure. They were closer to like 3 to 5 minutes apart. Um, and still just as intense, lasting a minute each. And I'd started to time them in like my app. And my doula had responded to around 3 o'clock, and she was like, "Oh, like let me know when you need me. How's it going? How are you doing? Just checking in." Let her know that they were still far enough apart. Told her to get sleep too, and I'd let her know when I needed her. I just didn't want to have everyone come down too early and then just be sitting there. That was like one thing I really wanted to avoid, because I didn't want my midwife to show up and be like, "You're not even close," because I think that'd be defeating. So I was able to kind of fall back asleep for a little bit. I had him bring up the birth ball and I set it next to the bed. And I liked to be on the ball during the contractions. I feel like I could move my hips around and bounce. And again, I knew gravity was helping, but that was way more comfortable than laying down. Um, and then I could still, in between contractions, like put my head down on the bed and feel like I was resting. So that position, I was probably on the ball from like 3:30 to 5, I'd say, just like getting little bits of rest. And they slowed back down. So from 3 to 4, they were like 3 to 5 minutes. And then from 4 to 5, they slowed back down again to probably 6 to 7 minutes. So then around 5 o'clock, they picked back up to probably every 3 to 5 minutes and were really uncomfortable. I turned the shower on. I hadn't been in the shower yet, but I turned the shower on hot and was just in there. And I'd get on my hands and knees in the shower during the contraction. And the hot water felt really good on my back. I was in the shower from 5 until probably like 5:30, 5:45. At 5:20, I told him, Trayson was outside the shower, like timing my contractions every time I'd have one. He'd start the timer in my app. But at 5:20, I told him it was time to let people know to come. I knew that they were getting really close. They were 2 to 3 minutes apart. So he texted, or maybe I told you not to tell Allison yet, but I told you to text my doula, Anna. So he texted her, told her to come. She responded right away saying like, "Okay, I'll get ready and I'll head." And then I had him call my sister-in-law, Meg, who was going to come be there to be with Ozzy, our oldest daughter, because I knew that she was going to need some support. We planned to have her at the birth and she was really excited, but I wanted someone to be there in case it got intense or she needed a break, just to be there for her, to take her out, because I didn't want him having to leave, or my doula or my midwife having to leave and take the attention to like help her. So my plan was to have Meg there, and I'd been texting her updates through the night, but she hadn't responded. I knew she was asleep. And so he called her at 5:30, and I know that she was like shocked because we were texting and I'd seen her the day before, and I was like, "Yep, no update, like nothing's coming." So I could hear her when I was in the shower. What did she say when you called her?
Oh, things moved
Oh
are
yeah.
moving
Oh,
fast.
things are
Or
moving. Yeah.
yeah.
She was like, "Okay, I'll get ready as fast as I can and come down." And I didn't love that it was the middle of the night. I felt bad like waking everyone up. I kept thinking like maybe I can wait until more of morning time, but at that point I knew that people needed to come. And I was getting nervous because our girls have been waking up at like 5:30, 6:30 since we've been here. And as that approached, I was like, "Oh crap, what are we going to do with Nellie?" Because the plan was not to have Nellie there. And I was like, "Who's going to come watch her?" So we started calling my mother-in-law to come grab her because she's always up early. I was like, "She'll be awake. Tiffany will be awake." So I tried calling her, no answer. Trayson tried calling her. We both called her a few times and she wasn't answering. And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll just see how it goes. Like, whatever." So at 5:30, I got out of the shower and got in some comfortable clothes that I wanted to labor in. And I told you it was time to like fill up the tub and the pool and everything. So I think I went and screwed the hose on in the shower. I was like, I was trying to like keep myself busy between contractions. So I like took the hose out, tried to screw it on. You needed to come finish doing that. I tried to go start blowing up the birth pool too, but I started having contractions and was like, "No, I need you to do this." So I kept like trying to start tasks and couldn't finish them. So I went back in our room, and we had wanted to vlog the birth. So I had our camcorder. So I got out our camcorder. I was like, "Oh, I'll take a video." So I'm like filming myself in the mirror. I'll actually include it and you can hear what I say. Um, but I like start talking and then I have a contraction and then you can hear Nellie wake up in the background. So here's that. It's currently 5:46 on Wednesday, June 18th. I woke up at 1:30 to a really strong contraction, and then they were every like 6 to 8 minutes. And they picked up for a second, slowed down again. Ooh, I'm having one right now. Oh. So once the girls woke up, Nellie came in our room and we just turned on a movie on the bed.
Ozzy too, right?
Did they come out at the same time?
Yeah, I think so.
So Nellie came in with me and Ozzy ran into Trayson in the other room. Or you went into her. And what did Ozzy say to you when you got her? When she woke up?
She said, well, she saw that I was blowing up the birthing pool, and she said, Dad, when I woke up, or what did she say?
I wrote it down that I didn't remember that we were having a baby today
Oh,
when we woke up.
Dad, I didn't remember that we were having a baby today when I woke up.
So cute. She was so excited. We have we'll include the video of her talking about like just being excited. You grabbed the camcorder after that, and we're filming her.
What?
We're having a baby today.
Holy cow, are you serious?
Yeah.
What in the
It's a
world?
baby boy.
Are you gonna be here?
Yeah.
Excited
Yeah.
to meet your brother?
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm gonna touch his little head and hat.
Me too.
So I turned on the B movie for Nellie in bed, and I was still just on the ball on the edge of the bed, laboring, and I was kind of feeling stressed about what we were gonna do about Nellie, but I was also like, okay, there's no point in feeling stressed about this. Like, Meg's coming. At least Meg will be here. Anna will be here. Like, and at some point, your mom had gone back to you or got back to you, but that was once I was like in the pool. I didn't know what was going on. I don't know when she finally got a hold of you. When did you get a hold of your mom?
No clue.
So, oh, and my friend Kenna was gonna film the birth, and so I tried calling her starting around 5:45, 6, and she wasn't answering either. Called her 2 or 3 times, she didn't answer, and again I was like, okay, if she doesn't make it, that's fine. But I told you, I was like, you should try calling Jack, her husband, and again at some point you got a hold of him.
Pretty short, yeah, like 6-ish, something, right?
No, I think it was closer to 6:30 that you got a hold of him because she didn't get there until like 7:15, 7:30. I don't know. Again, everything's kind of a blur. It was happening really fast. So at 5:45, I finally texted my midwife and I was like, things are getting intense. Like, I feel like it's going to move fast. They're 2 to 3 minutes apart. She asked how I was coping. I was like, I'm okay, but they hurt. I feel like I'm going to throw up, which with my other 2, when I was in transition, I was throwing up. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're probably getting close. Like, what if no one was there at that point? It was just us and the girls. And I was like, what if he's born and there's no one here and it's just us? I kind of started to get panicky for a second, but I was like, someone's going to get here. I didn't feel like he was coming right then. It just felt like it was happening fast. So I did start throwing up. And then my doula, Anna, got here at right around 6. And she came up, started doing some counter pressure, just checking on how I was doing. We tried the TENS machine, like the TENS unit. I tried it for 1 contraction and I did not like it. I know some people love it, but I did not. You were in the other room filling up the pool at that point. And my midwife again was like, okay, well, let me know what your doula says when she gets there, because my doula used to be a labor and delivery nurse, and so she was like, she can kind of gauge how you're doing, let me know what she says. And I was like, okay. So Anna got there, and then Meg got there right around 6 as well, so she was there being really helpful with the girls. But so far Nellie was doing really well. She, when I was having contractions next to the bed, she was like, okay mama, like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. It was kind of nice having her to just, it kind of like brought me back to earth when I was, you know, panicking or stressed, and she was just really calm, just making sure I was okay. So actually it was nice that she was there. And Ozzy was just excited, kind of like running around, just helping him, checking on me. She was filming. Tracy gave her the camcorder and she was filming me for a second. Hi. What's going on?
Having a baby.
We are having a baby, huh? Are you excited?
Yeah.
And then around 6:15 maybe, I texted 6:20, I texted my midwife and said, okay, it's time for you to come. They're really intense, they're 2 to 3 minutes. My doula agrees, like, you should come. So she said, great, I'm already like getting in the car, I'm on my way, I'll see you soon. So once I knew that she was coming, I did not have my phone on me anymore because I was still trying to time my contractions to have an idea of how close they were. But from that point on, I didn't time them anymore. I think you guys were still timing them a little bit when I got in the tub, but I, from that point on, like, had no sense of what time it was from there on out. I wanted to get in the pool around 6:40, I think it was, and so I got in, and right when I got in, I was like, okay, it's a little hot. I need it to be cooled down. So you went and turned it on, started cooling it down. And once I got in the water, the contractions slowed a bit, like still 3 to 4 minutes. They were still pretty close, but again, they were really intense. Each contraction was, yeah, it was really intense. And at that point, my midwife was on her way, my doula was there, Anna was there, Tracy was there, and the girls were there. And the girls were doing really well. They were just excited walking around. Ozzy thought the pool was fun. Nellie, what was Nellie even doing? Meg probably had Nellie.
Ozzy was swimming.
Oh, not yet. No, she did. she'd already changed out of her pajamas into her dance dress. So when I get in the pool, she comes in like a dance outfit, checking on me. Oh, Nelly was dancing to the music. I had like a birth playlist going, and Nelly was dancing around. And then I was actually grateful that my contractions were pretty spread out because I feel like I was able to get like a pretty good rest between them. And this is literally exactly what happened when I was in labor, just our little 19-month-old waddling out to join the party. So Ozzy was kind of like splashing in the bath with me, and like over the edge, and started asking if she could get in, which I knew she was going to do. So I just told her like, yeah, you can get in, go put a swimsuit on. So she ran out of the room, comes in a swimsuit, and climbs on into the pool. And it was actually kind of funny. It was like comedic relief that just kind of made me laugh in the moment, which I was actually grateful for. But she was full on swimming, like head under the water, fully submerged in the pool. So the contractions were really intense at this point, and I was feeling a lot of pressure. Allison, my midwife, got there at 6:52. He was born at 7:52, so she got there exactly an hour before he was born. And she walked in and set some stuff up in our room, came in the room that we were in, checking on me. She checked his heart rate and everything was good. And then she said, like, on your next contraction, I'm going to check his heart rate again, make sure he's like tolerating the contractions well. And he was great. When I heard her say that, like, I asked her, I was like, is everything okay? She said, he sounds great. So that was really nice to hear, just because I assumed everything was fine, but you just don't know. Allison, my midwife, was amazing. She just was like such a calming presence. She was kind of just a fly on the wall. Like, I never had a cervical check in labor, which I was grateful for, because in my labor with Nelly, I feel like my cervical check right before she was born, they said she was at a 7, which scared me, and I felt like I wasn't close. And then she was born 20 minutes later, but hearing a 7 like sent me into a panic. Thought I needed an epidural. So this time I was just grateful to not have a cervical check and just like trusted my body, and I knew when I was ready to push, and I knew when things were getting intense without someone having to tell me. So Kenna got there around 7:30, maybe 7:20, and at this point my mother-in-law had gotten there to be with Nelly. And she had called Tracy and was like, do you want me to come get her? Or do you want your sister to come get her? Because our sister-in-law lives really close. And we were like, no, she's actually doing really well. She was having fun. It was good to have her there. So I was like, no, let's just wait and leave her. But my mother-in-law had gotten there, and there were a couple times where she would cry or get emotional for a second, and they'd just take her out. But Ozzy was great the whole time. There was tons of pressure. Like I said, contractions were so intense, so strong. And we knew it was probably time for Ozzy to get out of the bath or out of the pool. So Meg took Ozzy out, went and got her changed. And it was 7:30 at this point. No, maybe 7:15, I don't know. But things were really intense, tons of pressure, and my water still hadn't broken. So I started to feel what I thought was maybe his head, but it didn't hurt like a head. And then I realized it was my water bag, and so my water bag was bulging, and I like came like it's like I birthed a bulge of my water bag, and then it popped, obviously. So I was like, okay, my water broke, that's good. Allison let me know, like, things might get more intense now because there's not like the cushion of your water bag. It's just going to be his head straight on your cervix. So it definitely got even more intense at that point. And Anna and Tracy would do counter pressure occasionally, like when it was really intense and I needed that. I had a fan, a handheld fan, which I loved. Nelly was actually holding the fan on me sometimes. Ozzy was holding it, Tracy was holding it. And just the cold air on my face felt really good, especially because like the birth pool, like the water was warm and I was getting really hot. So the fan felt really nice. Baby Coco, yeah. Is that your brother? You want to touch him? Yeah. So nice. Thanks, honey. I didn't feel like an urge to push, but I felt so much pressure, and I knew that the only way to be done with like the intensity and the pain and discomfort was for him to be born. So I was like, okay, I need to push. Like I just knew in my head that I needed to push. And I could feel his head like inside me, and I was like, it felt so big. I remember saying like, he's not gonna fit. Like there's no way, his head is so big. And the pressure, I mean, the contractions were painful, uncomfortable, whatever, but the pressure of his head just felt so big. And I was like, this is just not, there's no way. Like, there's just no way he's going to fit. And my midwife was like, he's going to fit. I remember in everything I'd say, Kenna had just had her baby unmedicated 6 months ago. And she'd look at me and be like, I said all these things that you said. Like, I'm going to rip in half. He's not going to fit. You know, it hurts so bad. I feel so much pressure. Like, it was nice having her there, acknowledging everything I was saying too. Because then I was like, okay, like you did it. And I knew I was going to do it.
Your body's need to stretch. It's okay. I felt like this. I know how you feel. It hurts. I promise. Your only way out is through.
You got this.
I never got to a point where I didn't think I could do it. I definitely said a couple times, like, I don't know if I, like, I can't do this. Like, he's not going to fit, but there was never a point where I actually felt like I couldn't, or felt like we needed to go to the hospital, or I needed an epidural. Like, it didn't feel like that. It just felt those are just the words that came out because that's physically how I was feeling in the moment. At the very end of labor, obviously things get really intense. Just breathing is intense. The sounds, like I was making, I wasn't really yelling, but just like loud, deep breathing.
It wasn't that bad.
No. And Ozzy was down like next to my face, next to Trayson the whole time, just like smiling. And I think everyone at the end was like, he's so close, you're so close. So she's hearing that. So she's like, the baby's almost here. Like, he's almost here. You know, like, yay, you got it, mom. Good job, mom. Just so happy and smiling. And it was so cool to see her completely unfazed by it. I think that was one of your favorite parts for sure. It was just seeing her during the labor. Because I had mentioned to him when we decided to do a home birth that I wanted Ozzy to be there. And you were hesitant.
Yeah, just because I wasn't sure if she could handle it or not.
Yeah, he's like, what if it's just too much for her? And I'd read things and everyone just said, like, kids aren't innately afraid of birth. Like, it's not a scary thing when they see it in its most natural, like, primitive form and state. And it was true. She was just so unfazed by it. She just thought it was cool and happy and exciting, which it is. So it was cool to see her like that. What's the baby's name?
Coco.
Coco. So I started to push, and at this point I was leaning over the pool, like on my hand, like on my knees with my arms and chest draped over the edge of the pool. So there was one big contraction and I pushed his head out, and my midwife had said, if he's born with this, like if he's born in the water, you need to stay under the water or stay in the water until he's all the way born. So after his head was born, I flipped over to sit down, and I was so tired. I felt like I couldn't push his body out. And everyone was like, you can do it. Like, his head's right there. And what's so crazy about when a baby's born in water is they can stay underwater until they take a breath outside the water. They're fine in the water. So his head was just out for what, like a minute, probably maybe a little more, which was crazy. And they thought maybe he had a cord around his neck, but my midwife checked and she was like, oh no, it's just when my water broke, it was like my amniotic sac was just like draped across his neck. So she was like, never mind, you're okay, but like you need to push him out, obviously. So another contraction came and I pushed him out, and my midwife kind of caught him because I was definitely like arching my back. It was more uncomfortable to push him out, like to push his body out sitting, than it was when I was pushing his head out on my knees. I just think it felt more natural on my knees than it did sitting. Oh, thank you. So she kind of caught him and handed him to me, and then they put him on my chest, and Trayson was there and Ozzy was there, and then Nellie ran over.
Hi.
Baby.
Hi.
So then it was just the five of us, and it was amazing. I mean, I was so exhausted. We have some pictures. My sister was taking pictures on the disposable camera, like the film camera, and I look exhausted because I was, obviously, but Ozzy was so happy, just smiling so big. And I love the pictures, even though I don't love how I look in them because I look exhausted, but they're just raw and just a very accurate depiction of how I felt in the moment. And then after a little bit, I birthed the placenta, and that was really smooth. Everyone always asks if that hurt, but that doesn't, I mean, compared to a baby, the placenta doesn't feel like anything. Hung out there for a little bit, and then they were like, okay, do you want to get out? Or maybe I said I wanted to get out of the pool. I don't really remember. And so Trayson helped like pick me up, like he put his arms under my arms and just lifted me up. And I just had him on my chest. What, honey? Had him on my chest,
Mommy.
and then we just walked. I just walked from one room to my room and just got in bed. And the fact that I could just get up and walk right after birth and just be back in my room in my space was so nice. That was one of my favorite parts of having a home birth, was just that it was like so comfortable. You're right back in your space. You're not in the hospital in like a more uncomfortable setting. It just was so comfortable and easy. And the girls were running around, and so once we were in our room, the midwife left Trayson and the baby and I while they did all the cleanup, which is so nice. The midwife and her assistant drained the pool, cleaned the pool, got laundry started with all the towels that we used. Like, everything was done for us, which was so nice. We literally did nothing for cleanup.
They did awesome.
Yeah, they were amazing. And then after we were in there for like maybe 30 minutes, or I don't know, just you, me, and the baby in the room. 30 minutes, hour? I don't
We
know.
lasted about 10.
Oh, 10. Yeah,
Before the
clearly I
girls
have
started
no.
running in.
Oh yeah, the girls came in. But after about an hour-ish, they came in to do, like, to take his weight, check for tears, cut the cord, everything like that. So they came in, Ozzy and Trayson cut the cord. And it was crazy. Like, what the cord was like after an hour and a half, however long it'd been, compared to in the hospital with my girls. Because we even did like delayed for a hospital with Nellie or maybe Ozzy, but an hour of letting the cord sit, it was like totally white. What? It was totally white, kind of rubbery, cold, and it just like cut way easier. No blood, like it didn't squirt blood when you cut it. So we cut the cord and they weighed him, and he was 715, which is how much Ozzy weighed. That is a big baby. I mean, 715 is a big baby. She was 7 even, but I wasn't surprised that he was 715. My guess was 7.5, but I thought that he would have come almost a whole week before he did, so I was not surprised by his weight at all. And they did his newborn exam, everything looked good, and then they finished cleaning up and helped me get up, go to the bathroom, get some clothes on. And then they just left and we were just at home in our space. It was amazing. Wasn't it amazing? And so comfortable, so much better than the hospital.
Yeah, way more comfortable than the hospital. Plus, they always try and keep you there for like a day or 2 days. So.
It was so fast. His birth was fast. From my first contraction to him being born was 6 hours. I love you too. I love you too. Thank you. 6 hours, which was one thing that I prayed for with the birth, just that it would be fast and smooth, and it was. So I was so grateful for that. So we had the rest of the day, just us. And then the next day, my midwife came back to check on me, did his like hearing test, everything that you have to then take your baby when your baby's born in the hospital, and then they do all these tests at the hospital before you're discharged, you know, their hearing screening or their heart test. Thank you. My midwife was able to do, so we didn't have to take him to a pediatrician right away. She was able to do it right there at our house after 24 hours, which was so nice. She's such a stinker. But all in all, like, it was such a good experience. It was so smooth. It was so great. Everyone's like, did it hurt? Was it the most painful thing you'd ever done? Like, yes, it was painful. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it hurt. But it was no harder or more uncomfortable or more painful than I knew it was going to be. So it was great. I think if you take your time to educate yourself on physiological birth, on just birth in general, home birth seems a lot less scary. Oh, that looks good. Because I think when you first hear home birth, before you educate yourself on like the statistics of it, or
Baby,
yes, just taking the time to really look into it, it sounds scary off the bat, and then when you learn about it, you realize it's not scary and it's just natural, and that's just the way it's supposed to be. And so we loved it. I mean, would you agree that any of our future babies will be born at home too?
Most likely.
I loved our experience, and I plan to have all of our babies at home from here on out.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. So if you have any other questions, you can leave them below. Anyone that asks about it now, I'm like, I just feel so passionate and excited about it. And I know that people that I knew or followed before that talk about their home births feel the same way. Like, they could just talk for hours about how amazing it was and how much they loved it. And that's how I feel. I just think it was amazing, and loved having my girls there. Loved my birth team. I'm excited to get our birth video back from Kenna. But yeah, that's our birth story. And like and subscribe.